Hi, friend. Welcome to another episode of Unlock Your Child's Full Potential podcast. Today, we are chatting with Veenu Keller, a life coach, behavior specialist, family consultant, and host of the Redefine Parenting podcast. She's also a mother of 6. Welcome, Veenu. So happy to have you here.
Billy, thank you so much for having me here.
Let's kick things off by hearing a little bit about your journey. What first got you onto the path of becoming a coach and a family consultant?
Yeah, so I had my own struggles for many years. From the time I was a child at 13 to about 34, I was suicidal. I was always looking for a way out. I was bullied for my skin color, and just what our filters are is what we receive. When I received that, I was bullied in my workforce. I was always being bullied because that was what my filter was, that I wasn't enough and I wasn't good enough and I didn't have self-worth. And I parented my 2 older boys through that. I was a single mom, and I went to my first Tony Robbins event in 2007, and it just changed my life. And one of the things he said is, and so I started to change my story. And as I started to heal, one of my mentors, Joseph McClendon, says, physician, heal thyself. And that's exactly what I did. I had to heal myself. I had to heal what I thought was trauma and wounds, and I had to learn how to do better. So if I learned it and I could do better, then my life would be better. And so I've been on that journey, and it led me to becoming a coach. I wanted to be a psychologist. I have a degree in psychology. And then I realized that with psychology, there's like a best practice that you have to do it this way. There's so many rules around it. And with coaching, I felt like it was more of understanding what is it that your client needs and how can you help them achieve that? How do you see what that gap is and you can close that gap? And I realized that that was more of what I wanted to do. I didn't want to have all these rules on how to do things. And even as an early interventionist, I worked with kids. I was a mental health professional for years. And again, with best practice, there were so many rules on how to work with these kids. And I would take them to the table and really work with them. And I would get them to talk. I would get their fine motor skills on par. And we weren't allowed to do that. There's no, let the kids just go and wander and do whatever. And I'm like, how are we combating what the issues are and helping them to progress if they're just crying and walking away? And so I realized that there has to be a better way that I could help these families. And so I was in these families' homes for years and talking to these parents, and the parents, look, I don't care if you stand on your head. And my kid starts talking, stand on your head. And I was like, oh my God, that's my viewpoint too, is whatever it takes. And after going through Tony's stuff and doing my own self growth and practicing what I was doing, I got into coaching. And at first it was like, I'm a life coach. I coach everyone. And I didn't realize the value in niching yourself. And I was a speaker. I was doing tours in Hawaii speaking. This time I've spoken on Tony's Robbins stage. I've shared the stage with Les Brown, Joseph McClendon III. And how it evolved was I would talk about the bullying and how I felt as a kid. And what I realized is that in that moment, I can help these students, but what happened when they went home? And I realized I had to really start at the foundation of family. And that's what led me to helping families. And I created years ago this program where I actually move in with families for 4 days. And I help turn the chaos into calm. And it's very successful. It's a very successful program because I'm actually living in the client's home, watching, observing, seeing the communication or the lack thereof, how the parents communicate with each other, how the kids receive it, and what the kids are doing. And every behavior will be sustained as long as its needs being met. And so I would start to see that, and I'd start to see why the kids were doing what they were doing.
I'm really interested in this in-home turnaround program. And I would like to know, what are some of the most common challenges that families today are facing?
The most common thing I see is kids don't want to listen. Kids are on their screen. They're so distracted by what they're doing. So when the parents are like, okay, it's time to eat, they're like, no, I don't want to. And the parents, because they get tired of that power struggle, they're like, fine, whatever, just dinner's on the table when you're ready. And then when it is time, where you're having company and it's come eat and they're like, no. Now the parents are mortified that they can't get their kid to come eat at the table. And they're going up there going, I'm going to take this away from you. I'm going to take that away from you. And so then the kids having a meltdown, then the parents are having a meltdown, then they're coming down, they're like, oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And then the kid comes and eats and he's like pouting at the table. He doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to eat. That's the stuff I see a lot. It's
If
the
you are there, what's your approach to this same situation?
where the first thing I do is hand over hand. Like it's like I go up to their room and I'm like, it's time to eat. So we're going to pause the game or we can turn it off. You have the choice. Do we want to turn it off or do we want to pause it? Because we need to eat. It's going to be about 30 minutes. So it's your choice. We're either going to turn the game off or we're going to pause it, come eat, and then you go back to your game. And it's giving choice, but it's giving a guide of what is the expectation. But the first thing I say to them is, I know you're getting on your game, but remember, dinner's going to be ready in 45 minutes. So tell me what you're going to do. And I get them to tell me, I'm going to pause my game and come eat. How many times is mom going to ask you? One time. Great. So then it comes time. And then that's when mom's going upstairs and saying, okay, it's time to pause your game or we turn it off. It's your choice. We'll pause it. They come down, they eat. We tell them to clean up their mess because they normally don't do that either. And then they go back up and they're playing and there's no power struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And we do this every day. And so it's on repeat. And the kids finding that this is easier to get what I want. I don't have to have that power struggle to get what I want because kids really just want control.
And so do we.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I was just at an event in Italy, and one of our speakers says that we were in a pandemic, and the pandemic is the need to be right.
Mm.
And the kids need that, and the parents need that. And so sometimes it's telling the kid, this is not about power. This is about learning. This is about understanding what we're doing as a child to make you a productive adult. How many kids now live at home with their parents after the age of 20? A lot.
A lot,
A lot.
at least where I live in. Yeah,
Because parents are doing everything for their kids.
exactly.
You know, like even we have we have a housekeeper, but she knows if she does the kids' laundry, the kids put it up. They just don't put their laundry away for them because my kids still have to learn how to do things. So they're going to do some steps of the process. They have to do dishes. They have to clean their bathroom. They have to clean their room. We're not doing it for them because what's going to happen when they move out? And they will move out, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I have 6 kids from the age of 30 all the way to 12-year-old twins. My 2 older boys that are 30 and 26, they moved out at 18. My stepdaughter, who's 19, she moved out at, I think, 18 from her mom's house. And then the 16-year-old's still there and the 12-year-olds are still with us. And it's not that we push them out at 18. It's, we have rules. These are the rules. You can live with them and stay, or you can move out. They choose to move out.
Yeah, I
you
love
know?
that. I love
And
it.
it's really, when people say, what is it that you feel is the goal of parenting? Happy, healthy, independent children.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so interesting. I recently got certified as a positive parenting coach. And one of the biggest shifts for me has been seeing kids' misbehavior as communication rather than them trying to annoy me or push back, like the power struggles you just mentioned. And it really helped me realize that we are on the same team. We're going through these challenges together. I'm learning, they're learning. And it's more about me helping them develop the life skills they're missing and not trying to make them follow the rules or just be compliant. Like we have rules, but it's not blind following. I make them understand why we have the rules first.
Right. So I
Yeah.
am writing a book called Parenting from Greatness. And in my book, I'm helping parents realize that to project what our kids' greatness is not going to work. We have to know our own greatness and allow our kids to discover their greatness and help them to lift their greatness up. And like you said, one of the things, I also have a coaching structure I'm getting ready to teach people on how to be coaches. But here's my X factor. I don't just coach parents, I coach the kids. I coach the kids and the parents because you can't have sustainable change with just one of them. And one of the things that I've always said is that behavior is communication. That's one of the things I teach, is that behavior is communication. For instance, when my daughter's having a meltdown that she's hungry, even though we just ate 30 minutes ago, it's, what is this really about? Is she really hungry, or is she needing attention? Does she feel not heard? Does she feel left out? What is it really? And diving into that, I can appreciate you feel the attention's not on you. And I admit it's not on you, but it's not your time. But what can you do to get my attention? Because right now, this is not working between us. And I want you to know that I love you. I want you to know that you're important. And it's really difficult when you're having this behavior. So I need you to use your words of what is it that you need? What's going to help you feel calm within your body? I want you to go into your body and see what's showing up. What are you feeling? Where's the pain? Is it in your heart? Is it in your stomach? Is it in your legs? It is in your head? And help me understand, what's that pain saying to you? Is it saying, I need mom's attention? Is it really saying I'm hungry because you didn't finish what you were supposed to be eating? What is it really about? And it really starts helping these kids to understand that they can communicate through their words and not their behavior. But here's what it comes down to, Billy. When a baby is born, it only knows how to communicate through behavior. Where's the gap when they don't learn how to transfer behavior into language? When we allow our kids at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to still have their temper tantrums, and instead of having it, we give into them that they want the candy bar at the store, or they're going to have a meltdown. We continue to elicit that behavior. So why would they change?
Yeah.
We have to give them the difference at that age. So I have a 6-year-old granddaughter, and she's a handful. She is a handful. And actually, my daughter-in-law was telling me, she's like, because we're going on a family vacation soon. And she says, oh, she's going to be a handful. And I'm like, I know she is, but you guys don't want to hear it from me. So I'm going to continue being the grandma who just loves her and lets her have her thing, and you guys can solve it. Because they would give in to her so they didn't have to hear it. And I said, or you're going to allow me to help you guys so we could stop this. Because when she's at our house without the parents, she's so great. I tell her to come to the dinner table. She comes to the dinner table. If she doesn't like what she's eating, she's, I don't like it. And I said, you're also not getting that ice cream in there until it's eaten. She goes, okay, I guess I'll eat it. At her parents, it's an absolute fall to the floor. I'm not eating it. Blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
blah.
I get it. Yeah, we teach kids how to treat us, and not
Yes,
just kids, other people as well.
100%, 100%. So that's like literally what it is. Like, we have to model how we want our kids to communicate. And my husband even said that sometimes we would bicker or whatever, and then we see the kids doing it and we get upset with them. We're like, but that's what they saw. They saw that we had to fight to get our way. And so now they're fighting to get their way. So if we want them to do better, we have to do better.
Yeah, and that's the toughest part, right? It's a personal development course for ourselves as parents. It starts with us. And I'm wondering, I'm all about prevention. And you mentioned attention kiddos. Like, what do we do, not just at the moment when she's having a tantrum, but before that, like to prevent this kind of misbehavior? Any ideas on that?
So kids like us, we all have patterns in our behavior. We do. We all have patterns. So it's being a pattern expert. It's recognizing what the patterns are. Is it happening around dinner time when it's time to wind down? They want to have their way. They want to relax. Like, what's going on with them? Have they spent a whole day at school, cooped up in a classroom, and now they have all this energy, and now you're telling them that they have to come home and do their homework, and they don't want to do it because they've just done 8 hours of schoolwork, cooped up. They want to play. They want to go run. They want to play baseball, basketball. And we're like, no, you need to do this first, and then you get to go. So it's recognizing what is it that they need. And this is part of the things that my book is going to talk about. It's having your child check in with themselves, is what is it that they need right now? It's having the conversations. It's teaching your kids that you can talk to me. My whole thing when I coach families is teaching families to have an open, safe, and trusting space, which means no judgment, that your children can come talk to you. And sometimes kids feel more comfortable with another parent. Like my daughter, we have twins, and the daughter, she's so much more comfortable talking to her dad about things. But my son is more comfortable talking to me about things. Is it our reaction? Is it our judgment? Because we have to also understand sometimes when we're giving advice, our kids take that as judgment when it's not. Our frontal lobe is developed. Theirs not even close to being developed. So we have to be the frontal lobe for our children. And so it's helping them understand, look, I'm not judging you for this, but I am saying that because I'm older, because I've lived through, this is the consequence you're going to have for that action. Do you want that? And so it's being almost like preemptive to what is coming up and making sure that the communication is open for you and your child, and also making sure that your child feels safe enough to discuss it with you so the behavior doesn't have to happen. I know right now for kids, one of the triggers is getting off their games. And we talk about games being so bad for them, but we also have to understand since COVID, kids have learned social skills through gaming. My son does not game unless he's on with someone. Like right now, my son is gaming with his cousin who's in California. I think it's great that those cousins who don't get to see each other, but once every other year or so, they haven't seen each other in 3 years, that they're creating a relationship through gaming together online, just the two of them. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
The challenge is going to be that when it's dinner time and he's gaming and it's like, you need to leave that because there's that urge. I don't want to leave. I'm not ready to, it's like, I'm not ready to leave the park yet. I'm not ready to go home yet. It's the same thing. So the biggest thing that I tell parents and for all your listeners is make sure you're giving them a pre-frame of what's going to happen. You're allowing them to know that, hey, I get you're gaming, you're having a great time. It's 3 o'clock now. At 4 o'clock, we have to go. So tell me, what are you going to do when I tell you you have to go? And they're like, I'm going to turn off my game and I'm going to come downstairs and get my shoes on. Okay. Are we going to have any behaviors? No, ma'am. Okay, great. And guess what? It works. Because one of the things that my mentor told me, and I live by it, is if I tell you something, you might believe me. But if you tell yourself, you're going to believe you. So I get my kids to tell me what is it they're going to do. So they're hearing themselves. So they're in charge of it now. It's not me telling you what to do. It's you're telling yourself what you need to do.
So getting them to repeat the agreement.
Correct.
Okay. And what if for some of the parents at the beginning, it doesn't work, like the kid is still pushing back? What is the consequence? Do they still take away the device or
I would also look at what's the pushback about. If the pushback is that they cannot get off, like literally cannot get off the game, then maybe we need to do a detox because they're very addicted to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And kids are addicted. And we do detoxes all the time in our house. We'll say, okay, next week's a detox week. Tell me what that looks like. No video games. Yep. And what else are you going to do? Here's one of the things that we're afraid of as parents. We're afraid for our kids to say they're bored. We don't want them to be bored. And here's what I say. Yes, you do. Because I look at, I'm 51 years old. So I grew up in the 70s and 80s and 90s. The 90s, I was more of an adult. But in the 70s and 80s, we didn't have video games. Like we started to get Atari and stuff like that, but a lot of people couldn't afford them. So we didn't have access to them. We needed to literally go and find a quarter and go to the store, the 7-Eleven, and play a video game if we were going to. But we were outside playing hide and go seek, snake in the grass, statue maker, red light, green light, duck goose. We played games. I remember everyone on our street, it didn't matter how old you were. We had my age at the time that I was like 7. We had the teenagers coming out. We even had the 6-year-olds coming out, and we all played together. And When the street lights came on, I had to go in because that was my mom's rule. But most people, the kids didn't. They didn't have to come in until it was supper time for them. And it was so great that the connection, the communication, the social skills. We didn't lack social skills back then. We lack social skills now because we're talking through screens. And during COVID, it was a great thing because we knew that our kids still had connection, because without connection, kids start to feel like they want to die. Honestly, they don't have that connection. Connection makes us grow as humans. And so now it's getting them off their screens and allowing them to be bored. Play board games, play card games, go outside and exercise, go find a friend outside. That's what's lacking now.
Yeah. That's why I think we should have like strict limits for how long they're allowed to play or be on their device, at least when they're young, because I don't know how that works for teenagers. I still have, my oldest is 11 right now, so I don't know yet, but I'm hoping we'll have a grip on it. And I recently read Gabor Mate's book, Hold On to Your Kids. And he argues that children today are more influenced by their peers than their parents. And this is like this weakens the parent-child bond. And this attachment, this lack of attachment, is at the root of so many families' frustrations. What do you think about that?
So I agree. I agree. I tell everybody, I said, you have the first 5 years to influence your children. It really makes their personality. It really makes them feel like if they're going to be, if they feel their worth, if they feel empowered, if they feel confident, it's what we give them in the first 5 years. And then after that, when they walk out that door, the world's their influence, the teachers, their peer groups. And here's the problem with peer groups. You don't know how they're being parented, those kids, and they get to influence your kids. And all of a sudden it's Bobby's able to do it. Why can't I do it? And my mom used to say, because I'm not Bobby's parent. And I didn't like that. So I try not to say that to my kids, but sometimes it does come out of my mouth. I'm like, I'm not their parent. But what I tell my kids, I said, you know what? There's different rules that parents feel that they need to keep their kids safe. Apparently, Bobby's parents feel he'll be safe with the lack of the rules that we have for you. But your dad and I love you so much that we want to put these rules so you feel safe and we know you're safe. When you're not in this house, we need to know you're safe. So we have a peace of mind. And we don't want to take away from your fun. So how are we going to do that? And we let our kids have the conversation and have the buy-in in it. So they realize that, wow, my parents love me and they just want to keep me safe. And I was explaining to my daughter today, my 26-year-old, I remember when he was 19, and he said to me, don't let this go to your head, but I do appreciate now how much you loved me with all your rules. I didn't like you took my phone away all the time, but I could appreciate now because I look at my friends who their parents didn't care, and these kids are in jail. They're screw ups. They don't have jobs. There was nothing that gave them a purpose in life. But now I realize, because I was a single mom, so I had a lot of rules. And I said, it's because I loved you and I needed to know you were safe. And that's what I share with my twins now. But now they have phones and stuff, so it's easy to have dialogue with us where they're at. And it's allowing them not to compare. And here's what I tell my kids. I said, comparison steals your joy. And that's what we're doing. We're allowing our kids to be influenced by other kids. My kids don't have social media. They don't. They're allowed to go on YouTube. They watch YouTube. My daughter watches things on makeup and stuff. We know what they watch. But that's it. That's it. They're not in any chat groups. They have iMessaging, which is connected to my phone so I can see what they're messaging their friends. And that's it. But I will tell you, all the kids that they're talking to, I think 95% of them have Instagram, have TikTok. My kids don't. And they don't ask about it because we've already told them. We're like, all that does is give you more ideas of what's out there that your brain is not developed enough to understand yet. And you don't need it. There's a reason why you have to be 14 years old to get a Facebook. And so it's the open communication is what helps keep our kids connected to us. because that's what they have out with their friends. They have open communication with their friends. So if we could keep that open communication with our kids, we too can allow us to still be a big influence in our kids' lives.
I love that. I love that. And open communication and allowing for mistakes so they can feel safe with us. Because sometimes they just don't want to tell us what's happening because they're afraid of our reaction.
Getting in trouble. They don't, who wants to be in trouble? Who wants to have things taken away? You know, and the
Mhm.
way I do it also is your behavior lets me know if you want your computer or not. If you're not doing your schoolwork, you're not doing what you need to do because you're distracted by that computer, that's showing me you don't want your computer anymore. But if you get all your work done and everything's done and you're doing great, that shows me you really do want your computer. So it's not what comes out of your mouth, it's what your behavior shows me. Your behavior shows me what you want and what you don't want.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we've been raising them that way, so they get it.
So, do you feel a difference between raising your older boys and now the siblings? Like, where's the difference? Because it's been a generation, right?
Yeah, I think two generations. I have one son that's a millennial, and then I have the next, what was ever after the millennial, I forget what that generation was. I have one of those, and then I have the Gen Z. It's like I have literally three generations here. And I will tell you the best compliment I ever get is from my older kids saying that you raised the twins so differently. And I'm like, thank God. And they look spoiled. The kids look spoiled because they have more, but they have more because I'm able to do more and I understand more. And I realize I don't have to take everything away from them. And I can't give them things because they're not going to appreciate it. Instead, I'm teaching them appreciation. I'm teaching them gratitude. And there's times that they don't. And sometimes I tell them, you're acting like you're very entitled. All of this can go away. You have to see what it took to get this and to get this far. Look at the work. And I want my kids to have a good work ethics. And I think my older kids do because they saw me work 3 jobs to put food on the table. And now the kids have a good work ethics because I teach them about work ethics.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you, Veenu. That's so
Yeah.
inspiring. And before we wrap up, please tell us about the free ebook you're offering to our listeners. How can it help parents raise their child's self-esteem?
Oh, beautiful. So yes, I have a free ebook. If you go to veenuinspires.com/ebook, that's VEENUINSPIRES.com/ebook. Teach your kids that they're enough. I wrote this book based on several stories of my own raising my kids and clients, and the 3 secrets to raising your kids' self-esteem. And the first is don't blame and shame. The second is your presence. And the third is about celebration. And it's a quick book. You can read it probably in 30 minutes, but it's a great guide to helping your kids know that you, again, birth to 5, you have that opportunity to know that to raise their self-esteem, for them to know what worth and love is for them.
And it's never too late to start, even
Never,
if they're older. And what
never.
about the podcast? Tell people where
So
they
I
can
have a
find.
TV show that's called Redefine Parenting. It's on Zingo TV, channels 250 and 251 every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And then I also have it turned into a podcast. They're both called Redefine Parenting, and it's on Spotify, podcast, wherever podcasts are listened to. My podcast is on there.